Thank you everyone for joining us. First of all, I will definitely make sure that everyone gets the link in the chat momentarily. I just wanted to do a quick introduction so that we can all kind of establish why we're here. I am not someone who is super technically minded, so I'm definitely coming at this from a layperson's perspective. My background is working in vet clinics. I've worked in general practice, emergency clinics, and in shelter medicine over the last 20 years. So not super into AI. This whole AI boom has kind of happened since just last year, in my perspective. But it is a huge buzz. Everyone's been talking about it. But if you think about it, really, AI has been in use for a while now. Algorithms that suggest the shows that you want to watch on your favorite streaming platform, or what posts you want to see on social media, Google ranking, chat bots, even autocomplete, for example. But today, we're going to talk mostly about large language model, or LLM, or generative AI. So generative AI, like ChatGPT, for example, essentially what they're doing is helping to create something new. So in recent months, we've seen how AI not only can extend the creativity of artists, but it's an entirely new medium to be explored. And now I think we're seeing a huge boom of business workflow applications, and even AI personal assistants are kind of all the rage now. But we're here to discuss AI in the vet space specifically, and its merits, discussing how it can be used, how it can be helpful. How safe is it? What do we need to know to be able to use it properly? And is it accessible? Can you use it today, and in what ways? So we've got a couple of special guests that are going to help me through this talk. As I said, I'm not this super techie person. So we've got Dr. Barr Hadar, who is a DVM who's actively engaged at the intersection of technology and veterinary medicine. Whose work leveraging data and tools to improve medical outcomes shows us how AI can be used in practical applications. He is the co-founder of Kumba and the scientific director of Healthy Pet Connect. So we're super excited to hear from him. We also have Clint Latham, who is the visionary founder of Lucca Veterinary Data Security, and he's helping vets realize the value of their data and protect it. And he'll be addressing a topic on everyone's mind, which is safety. And then, of course, we have Sebastian Gabor, who is CEO and co-founder of Digitail. And he is always working to find ways that AI can be integrated into the tools that you currently use to become faster and more efficient in your day-to-day life. So with that being said, I think Sebastian has a couple things to say about AI to us to start us off.
Thank you, Heather. I think before that, we need to talk about my last name and how do we make that a bit more simple, because it seems complicated. Thanks everyone for joining, and also thanks Dr. Barr and Clint for being special guests in this conversation. I think that the interesting part is that in my day-to-day life, AI has started taking a lot of space. I don't know, how do you feel about your conversation with friends, but this is 80% of the discussions. Like, are you using it? What's happening? How are you using it? What mistakes did you get? Any hallucinations are out that happened? Any cool use case that you're seeing? And because of that, I see that everyone has this on their mind. So we thought that it might be a special and good occasion to get together and start brainstorming with people that are already using it, but also see the other side of the coin, because we could all look at the bright and shiny, and that's if the people that know me directly. I'm always the naive, what's going to happen in 20 years? Let's make it today, and how do we help the world? But in reality, there's also downsides. There are other arguments that we should look at. So as we go into things, I want to share a couple of information. Some of you I know already research this on a day-to-day basis, but two graphs that I wanted to show, because we're talking now about AI, but AI has started a long time ago. And this is a quick graph where you'll see that the first experiments with the Turing tests, which is the test that they're trying to see if the machine understands and is becoming more intelligent. So this happened in 1950, 40 years before I was born. So a long time ago. But then if you look at all the experiments that happened, some of them you might know, Deep Blue, the one from IBM, which was the first one that was able to beat a master, like a grandmaster at chess, which was a big step. Then, of course, Siri and Watson. With Roomba, I guess this is the AI part where they're listening to all the data in the house and then sending it to Central. So, Clint, you probably have a lot of info on that one. Alexa AlphaGo, which is the last one where they managed to do what they did with chess, but the complexity of it to apply it to Go was just insane. So they managed to do that. This is one. And then the other one that was interesting is this one. This part, starting 2017, shows basically the first LLMs, so language models. And you see that there's a small number. I'll be able to share this. Let me see if I can also make it bigger. There we go. Better? Is basically 46 million. This number here is the key part, because this number is basically the amount of data that the language models get trained on. And to simplify this, how I normally look at it is that similar to humans, we have a long-term memory and we have a short-term memory. Our long-term memory is also where we have the skills, whatever we learn. So every time we have a conversation, we use things from the long-term memory. Well, this 46 million is basically everything that they have in their long-term memory. And it started with 46 million data points in 2017. And these ones, if you tried to use them, they were like failing all the time. Then it became a bit better. We see GPT now 2018 growing. Then suddenly there's a huge leap in 1 year. So GPT goes for 1.5 billion data points, which is a lot compared to where it started. And you see also other models. So NVIDIA, if you know them as a company, or Google, Facebook. So there are a lot of companies trying to do this and cracking it. Microsoft made another big leap from, again, 1.5 billion to 17 billion data points. But then it started becoming the industry started becoming super hot. 2020, GPT-3 with 175. And this is the 3. So for everyone, now we're at GPT-4, which was a massive leap from 3 and 3.5. 2021, we have this. So 207, Microsoft 530. We have a player that no one knows of, but yes, we do have other companies in China and other parts of the world that are way ahead in terms of how much they've trained in language models, and Google with the 540. So as GPT-4, GPT-5, and other ones will come, we'll expect this number to grow. And this means that the AI will become savvier in terms of what it can do. And these are the exciting parts. Now, if you look at use cases, you do have in all industries use cases. And today we'll hopefully speak more about use cases in VetMed. But probably you've already started using it in your day-to-day life and also in your companies. So the marketing department's doing all crazy campaigns directly with AI, creating also the designs directly with Midjourney or other tools that are out there. If I'm just speaking about things really fast, just we can stop me, or we can speak later in more details. Sales the same, with you can recreate all the emails in simple versions or make them more attractive. Development with auto completion. But basically, one way of seeing this is that there are 3 big use cases for AI the way we know it today. One is auto completion. And for those that have been using Google Docs, you've seen this probably for a long time when you were typing and then you're getting the auto-complete, or for all the keyboards. That's AI over there. The other one is summary. So the power of summarizing documents is insane. Like you give it a PDF of 300 pages and it comes up with the summary. So that's one super skill that AI has. And the third one is Copilot, letting you use other tools at the same time and embedding it in your workflows. Those are the 3 ways of seeing where we can use it. There are a lot of limitations because, as you've seen, there are hallucinations. That's how they're called. But basically, when the AI doesn't respond something correctly, sorry, he agrees. Those are called hallucinations, and that happens for a wide range of reasons. One simple example that we've seen that was really exciting is that in GPT-3, urinary blockage definitely wasn't catching it. GPT-4 already was catching it. And that's super interesting because we've spent at least 2 months in trying to train it to catch it. And then just 4 months later, OpenAI released a new update with more data training for the model, and it knew it. So there are big advancements that are reducing all those hallucinations, and there are a lot of models in how you can reduce them. But it's important for all of us to know that it's not the perfect technology. That's why it still requires someone to check it and to verify it. But the question is, can it supercharge what you're doing? And that's probably the exciting part of where we are now. There are also big discussions on ethical use. How do we put safe rails? So you'll hear this word a couple of times with guardrails or safe rails. Is that where you're trying to not let it be biased towards the political opponent or different views of life. So you're trying to put some safeguards. And probably Clint will be able to help a bit more on understanding that topic better. But those are the challenges of today. And Sam Altman, who's the founder of OpenAI, said something really interesting, is that what do we prioritize? Do we prioritize progress or alignment? Alignment is basically aligning AI to our values, or progress. And the great part right now is that the speed of alignment is faster than the speed of growth, because as you're growing, you're discovering new use cases. But basically, the speed of alignment is faster. So in a couple of years, we're definitely going to get at the point where we're aligned AI to our values. Last 2 points is most of the companies are going to try to use AI to embed it in their product. But, and this is something that an AI expert that I talked with said, and I found it really interesting, is that the companies that will see AI as a feature will fail, because AI is not another feature. It's not like you're creating forms powered with AI and that's the new form. But AI is the new operating model. In other words, it changes how you get to a certain result. Like, do you want to do things like pre-screening with pet parents? You don't just embed it in the forms, but you enable a new way of interacting with the pet parents that will lead to a better result. The difference might be subtle, but when you start asking the questions and go in details, it makes a huge of a difference in understanding that you don't just supercharge a feature with this, but it requires companies to have a total different new way of thinking. And the last one from me before we talk more about actual use cases in pet care is price. And I don't know if you've seen, but the cost of AI is still more on the expensive side right now, but it's going down dramatically. Like 2 months ago, when OpenAI released the Turbo and GPT-4, basically they reduced the cost by 10x just for small improvements in server and DevOps. And this is just the beginning, because everything that we're doing now is not optimized. Everything was done to fast growth. So as we're going to see over the next months, that cost will reduce dramatically. And this will allow AI to be used mass scale. So those are the big important things that we're trying to look at to understand where AI can be used, how it can be used, is it viable? And then we need to go into data and if that's ethical. Without further ado, AI, of course, what was on our mind, how we can use AI in practices, how we can supercharge staff members, how can we offer better pet care? And there are a lot of use cases, but no one will share better than Dr. Barr Hadar here what use cases has been already on his mind and what he used. And then we can explore together what other interesting applications we can find with this.
Sounds good. Well, hey everybody, glad to be here. And just I guess just like Sebastian was saying, super excited about what this can do. I think it's going to open the door for all kind of opportunities. Obviously, there's going to be risk involved, but as long as we're aware of those, and we're within the profession to help guide those, I think we're going to be able to help transform medicine, and it will help shift medicine to more personalized, proactive, continuous care instead of this kind of reactive, generalized medicine that we have today. And I think everyone can agree that there's a lot of room for improvement within the industry. And I think this is going to be able to shift things exponentially. So super excited about it. What kind of things do we think that do I see some applications for AI? I think one of the most obvious ones would be some kind of a clinical decision support system, which we partially have today with diagnostics. So how can AI help us with diagnosing? I think the most common today are these image image models that analyze either X-rays, CTs, retinal images, cytologies, that some have point of care cytology ones. Help us look through blood work, etc. And so I think now, if you can, those are kind of specific diagnoses within specific fields. And imagine now if you can combine that with data from practice management software, data from remote monitoring devices and smart collars, home inputted data from the client. And now you have this huge, rich source of information that's all, a better, well-rounded story for that pet, what kind of diagnoses and what kind of things you're going to find and patterns you're going to find with all that information. Also with treatments, how can we better personalize treatments for our patients? Combining the information that we have there and some new research, right? I feel like nowadays we have such an information overload. We have new journals coming out, we have CE, we have all types of clinical trials going on, things happening in other practices. And if we can now use AI to better improve translational medicine, bring that research that's out there to clinicians and be that assistant. So if you're searching for something, you can easily see what's new research is out there, what things you should be trying, how that applies to your patient specifically based on their medical record, based on their signalment, based on their genomics, and all kinds of new stuff there. I think there's also it's also going to be exciting to see how it's going to improve the internal workflow within the clinic. And so streamlining those pre-screenings, the triaging of clients and seeing, when to book, what is needed, generating summaries for when you go into the exam room, so you know what to expect, taking notes for you, and now generating your soaps and inputting notes into your records so you don't have to do it yourself, generating summaries for your clients, better follow up with your clients in terms of home care, in terms of response to treatment, in terms of client education on diagnoses and what to expect with certain treatments, double checking your calculations, making sure you're not missing anything. And so I think that workflow, having that digital vet assistant is going to be amazing at the efficiency and the ability for us to now step away from all this, let's say, kind of input data technician work into kind of more focus on that client interaction and client relationship. I think so. That's kind of on the vet side of things. On the client side of things, it's also going to help with, like we mentioned, triage, having that vet coach on the side, or that digital veterinary coach on the side to help them coach with behavior, with diet, how to follow up with certain care that they receive at the vet clinic, all that kind of stuff, and increase availability of veterinary services or vet information that the veterinary professional have to help guide and help focus and help educate the clients as to the uses and limitations of. But having that access, I think it's going to be shifting things greatly. So I think from there we can kind of just dive into examples. I think one common example that many have seen that was trending on Twitter is this one use of ChatGPT that helped diagnose a guy's dog a dog with IMHA. He first went into a clinic. I don't know if you can pull that up, Heather or Sebastian. They, long story short, basically had a post and he said he went to a vet and they tested it for tick disease. It was anemic, wasn't helping. He posted all of his blood results. He posted everything into ChatGPT, and it basically said, okay, yeah, it could be tick disease. It could also be IMHA and some other conditions. So then he went to another vet and said, look, I think it might be IMHA. They tested, it was IMHA. They treated, and dog got better. And so, I mean, that's just one case of how just general ChatGPT that's trained on basic information from a huge source and not a specific source was able to just say, okay, why don't you think about this kind of diagnosis and let's bring it up. I think, I mean, this is something obviously a vet could do on its own, but at least bringing some attention to it and empowering pet parents to take more control over the health of their pets. I think another, we kind of briefly discussed this previously, but that pre-screening process, and kind of, I guess let's back up. So first, I think Sebastian mentioned that one of the best use cases for ChatGPTs is kind of content generation, and information, providing information. So I think one example we can kind of highlight here is a way you can kind of communicate with your client, disseminate information. So for example, I don't know if you want to pull it up, Sebastian, but let's say you want to create a blog post, or an email or something for clients to, explain the importance of tick treatment or heartworm treatment. And so this is here. Why don't you jump to?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, so this is
so wait, before we go into this one, just 1 second for everyone.
Sure.
So this is directly on OpenAI. So this is something that I'm not sure, like, how many of you have already played with this one? I have a couple of hands up and a couple of cameras off. So okay. So this one, again, it's the one you go directly in the playground on OpenAI. What's really important is when you go on the right side, what model you're using. This is this one that we're gonna use for this one is basically the chat and directly on GPT-4. So these are the settings that we normally play with and test it out. And then here, this is the example that Barr you were saying, right, with education materials.
Mm-hmm. And this is and it might look a little bit different if you just go to the chat, OpenAI chat website that most people use. Sometimes you don't have these little side notes where you can kind of input parameters, which you can discuss the importance of soon. But yeah, this is just if you want to chat OpenAI ChatGPT right now and you put a prompt like this in, this is something that it could produce for you. I'm sure many of you have used it and kind of seen how it's really good at creating first drafts of written content, of editing drafts, of providing outlines and such. So I think that's one obvious application that we can use it for the clinic. I need to make a blog, I need to send out an email blast. This is one example that we were just playing around with earlier. I'm looking in Hawaii. We have a lot of heartworm here. So it's like, okay, how do we, let's say we want to send out create a blog post for our clientele about the importance of heartworm medication. And as you can see here, it kind of creates a first draft about, what it is, why is it important, something that we can easily just skim over, edit it, post it on our website, and go from there. Another way, I think another one, if you want to go, let's jump to the discharge instructions here. Exactly. So another way that you can just use the regular ChatGPT, you have, kind of related to that case we discussed earlier about the IMHA. Now you have a diagnosis. You may already have certain educational materials that you send home for clients. This is another way that you can produce these that are going to be unique and specific to your own case. For example, here we wrote, what is immune-mediated hemoleucemia? And so it kind of tells you in its original version, and then you can start to play with the chat and have it rephrased into certain terminology. So if you want it to be more basic terminology, if you want it to be lighter, and that's one great thing I think that separates obviously ChatGPT from other chatbots is the ability for it to continue that conversation and use previous information in your conversation and build on that. So you can easily say, okay, I want to rephrase this into, more, use more emojis. I want you to make it shorter. I want you to make it longer, all of that. So really nice way
before we go to the next one with the emojis and such. Heather, maybe you want to show how you're already using Midjourney and other ones to create design based on prompts. You're going to be muted, but as you're opening that up here, one also important aspect that you mentioned with the working memory. So this is another interesting fact that GPT-4 is having 8,000 tokens, or actually 25,000 tokens, which that's the working memory. So if you have a short conversation of 3 sentences, that was great for GPT-2. But now you can actually have a long conversation of a lot of topics, and it remembers all of that. So it continues the conversation from that moment. Heather, back to you.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw in a little prompt so I can even show you guys what I had been playing around with. Again, let's reestablish that I am not a techie person, so you too can achieve this. I was trying to get a cute little graphic of 3 people all at a round table talking about technology. I played around with some different color schemes, different moods. We had some like fun ones, trying to get them talking about pets, and then it made them all cats, which was pretty unexpected and adorable. I was having trouble differentiating that I wanted to have cats there, not for them to be cats. But I think honestly, the first couple that I did were probably the best. But I can do just one cute one, dogs playing poker in a comic book style, dynamic lighting. And it'll take a minute to come up with that, and we'll see. It's pretty fun. Again, I'm not super skilled at it yet, but I can see that it has a lot of potential. And if you can learn to prompt and direct it, it's essentially learning a new language, learning how to communicate with it so that it can give you what you want. And that's kind of the idea of all of these new tools, is the simplicity of them, that someone like me can do this. We can play around and have fun with this. So there's my dogs playing poker with dynamic lighting. All right. Okay, so you guys were going to continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, yeah. So jump in.
And yeah. Just to mention that if you look at the first response versus the second one, so the first one is, let's say, a more formal one. The second one, it did a comparison of the immune system and how does it work and what's the actual problem. So insane in terms of being able to understand and then compare it to something that explain, all those YouTube videos would explain this to a 5-year-old.
Yeah,
That's basically
super cool that you can do that. And you can, and that's what's super nice about just going back and forth and making it more natural, like, is you can tweak it, and it's all about that prompt engineering, as you guys were discussing. How can you get it to just keep playing with it until you get a nice output.
Yep.
You can add, and you can even add personalized touches. I wanted you to make this an email to client X for patient Y, who's super, add those personal touches within that email, within that blog post, and it'll jump right in there as well. What you got? What'd you pull up here, Seb?
The one thing I'm just gonna.
Email, yeah.
I just wanted to interject shortly with that specific case or use case. A lot of vets like to send home discharge instructions or printouts from different websites that have peer-reviewed information, but maybe the recommendations don't quite fit with what you're recommending. And then to avoid that, awkward having to explain having to explain your thought process and why you've made the decisions, you can just create your own discharge instructions or information sheets super fast and easy.
Yep. And I think what's great about that now too is soon we're just using ChatGPT that's programmed on all generic information, but now we're going to start seeing how if we can pull in certain specific data sources, private management software from specific trusted sources. If you want it from Merck, if you want it from BIN, if you want it from Clinical Advisor, all those kind of things, how can we start to have even better and more improved outputs and things that are more in line and trusted with information that you want to provide to your clients. So I guess this is go for it.
Yeah, important to know that there's also a lot of saying with AI will replace all human beings, and AI will like Skynet and Doom and everything is going to explode. But there's 2 important things there. One that I really loved was AI won't replace us, but someone using AI will surely do that because it just supercharges a lot of what they do. Wow. And then what I really love is that it still does a lot of mistakes, right? And we're thinking of AI will like kaboom and destroy all humanity, which might happen somewhere. But currently what's happening is that it might do that just by mistake, because there's still a lot of mistakes happening. So it needs to mistake its way to do everything perfectly. So yeah, there's still a lot of things that need to be improved, and there's still a lot of engineering that needs to be done to get it to a perfect point. But again, there are use cases where it's already proven valuable. Sorry, back to you.
Definitely. No, and that's a good point. There are definitely limitations there, and like with anything, you have to understand what the limitations are. They're going to be error rate. There are going to be errors, and right now the error rate is, it's just a new technology, and who knows, it's a long marathon with no end, so who knows where it's going to be going. There's going to be a higher error rate now in the beginning, and so it's just understanding those limitations, understanding what those error rates are, and like with anything else, they're going to improve as they get trained better, just like any like anything. So good example of that, I guess, or good example of where you can have it help you in other areas and supercharge you is double check certain calculations. So this is an example. Now we're assuming, so that was general ChatGPT. Now let's assume that it can pull information directly from practice management system or certain information that you put in that's personal for a specific patient. And now either you, or let's say you, this is the kind of like a coach for your client. You say, based on the segment of Daisy, just I'm Daisy. Now, what's a kind of my caloric intake? Help me calculate that. And you can have it double check. You can have it calculated and it shows its work, which is great. So now somebody, maybe for a client, they want to understand this, but for the veterinary professionals, you can easily look at it. You know what's going on. Okay, it looks good. And it's a nice way to come with the calculations and make sure it's something that you want to provide to your clients. And yeah, same thing with that. You have the calculations. If you want to convert it, if you want to say now input this calculation into an email outline and give those instructions to a client, you can just start iterating within that one chat conversation. So pretty cool.
The next one is the trying to trick it with the steroids treatment.
Oh yeah. So another kind of a use case is, so can it have, now it has access to all the information within like a practice management software, let's say. Can it double check you and look for mistakes, right? So when you're doing certain things, can it double check there's no allergies? Can it double check there's no contraindications associated with medications that you're giving it? So in this example, we're assuming there's a client here, it has a weight, and then it's on Prevacox, and so it's already on a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, and now we're rushing through it. We didn't know that it had Prevacox, or it was hidden somewhere in an attached PDF from a previous veterinarian, and so something that we passed over. So hopefully, can the AI model pick that information up? Now we're going to ask it, I want to administer Daisy a steroid. Not knowing that, it's going to come with a disclaimer, I'm not a veterinarian, which is great. And this is kind of information that you have. And it says here, I think you can notice in the very bottom, what does it say? It's crucial to consult with a veterinarian, especially if she's already got another medication like Prevacox. It's important to know that combining a steroid, non-steroidal with Prevacox can potentially lead to adverse effects. So this is just with a couple basic prompts. This is something that we can improve and improve as we go, and make it pull out certain information from various things that may have taken a lot of minutes to skim over. So make sure you're not missing any crucial information within the medical record.
Yeah. Also, this part of reading diagnostics, basically reading the results, understanding trending that is going down, up, and also what's within normal limits. This was an example for albumin. We just gave it a couple of values, and then we asked what's trending and if it's fine, and then it said that it's actually outside normal limits and it's dropping, and this can be cause of concern. And then you can go with the next question, and what are confirmatory testing to diagnose this, and it leads towards an answer on that topic. We have a couple more, especially on the pre-screening part. We can leave this for later, because I think, Heather, you were flagging us in private here. That
I want to bring Clint into this conversation. One of the questions that was asked multiple times when we were collecting for this roundtable was kind of, what are the implications of using AI in healthcare for patient privacy and data security, and how can these concerns be addressed? And Clint is the perfect person to discuss with us data and security. So I wanted you to take it away, Clint.
So we can go two ways. We can go used as a weapon, or we can look at privacy concerns. So what are people more interested in?
Oh, that's a good one.
Weapon.
Weapon. Okay.
Why was I
So-
expecting that from?
Okay. This is a fun one. And actually, there's a really great example I can use from 2017. So does anybody remember the world's largest cyber attack? And if anybody's not aware, there's currently a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. This isn't anything new. Back in 2017, the largest cyber attack we've ever seen actually hit veterinary medicine super hard. And it was by an attack called NotPetya. And it's essentially by what we do by calling this poisoning the well, right? So what the Russian government wanted to do is they wanted to find a way to take out the Ukrainian economy. How do we shut down the Ukrainian government? And so they found that there was a application. In this case, it's like the European version of QuickBooks. And so they got access to the servers. They then poisoned an update. And so when everybody across Europe updated QuickBooks the next day, so like if you use the desktop version of QuickBooks, you probably see that annoying update, like, hey, time to update your tax tables. Everybody pushed update. And what happened is because cybercrime knows no borders, it spread across the globe. Now, everybody thought it was ransomware because there was a screen that said, hey, if you want to unlock your system, give us, $4, 4 Bitcoin, which is like $50,000 or $60,000, and we'll unlock your system. But what we actually found out is that it was a wiper. So it completely deleted everything on the hard drive. So because it was so widely used, not only in Ukraine could you not access your banks, could you not access the train system, you couldn't access anything because all computer systems had been shut down by this one update. Anybody here familiar with Merck Animal Health? Heard of them?
Yeah.
So Merck had one computer that was sitting on the Black Sea. That one computer got infected and then it spread to North America. The short of the story is it led to over $670 million in losses that Merck was still fighting a lawsuit with their cybersecurity insurance company to basically pay out. The short of it is that last year they finally did win and they did have to pay out, but it shut down their entire operation. So they had to actually go to the United States government and say, like, we can't produce drugs. We need to tap into your emergency drug supplies in order to be able to supply our customers. So this is not only on the human health side, but on the vet med side. Now, Merck Animal Health has massive IT teams and massive budgets to put in the best cybersecurity in place, and they got hit with $670 million in losses. A similar attack was done to NVA to hit over 400 hospitals. So why is this important? So when it comes to AI, so there are a couple of areas. One, if we look at how those tools were deployed. So big tools like that were generally deployed by incredibly smart people who knew how to code and had all the tools at their disposal, right? And so it was not something easy that you could easily do if you weren't super tech savvy or didn't have access to government agencies to help you crack into servers. After that attack, what we have seen is now we have moved to RAS models, or ransomware as a service models. And we have companies where they provide you developers and they give you the tools and the instructions to then go do it yourself. We have now seen recently using AI models that have copied the ChatGPT model, where you essentially just ask it, like you go on the dark web, you find one of these models and you ask it, hey, I would like to take, so first question is, anybody in here still using a Windows 7 computer to run their radiology in their hospital? Probably a lot of you are. If you are, there's over 4,000 vulnerabilities on that one computer. So if that computer is in any way touching the internet, there's 4,000 ways right now, including more, that we could potentially get into that computer. So all I have to do now is go to these models and I can say, hey, I want to take advantage of a Windows 7 computer. Please list all the vulnerabilities. It'll give you the list. Okay, cool. Now I want you to write the code for me to be able to take advantage of this vulnerability. And it'll give you the code set. And so essentially now it's allowing pretty much anybody who's not super technical. So we have this small subset of people who generally work for governments, made a large amount of money. Then it went to now me, I can go hire these companies. And a lot of times they won't take a cut until I actually get paid from whoever I attack, to now I can kind of do it myself without any help. So we have basically that's one model that I think that we can get hit. The second way is what happens when a nation state actor then who's really, really smart, and they're, say Kim Jong-un goes to his hacking team, I think they're called like the Honey Bears or something, and he's like, hey, I want you to infiltrate into ChatGPT and I want you to spread this virus, right? So they're going to find, we already know that OpenAI did have a breach already, and the Italian government basically shut them down and won't allow ChatGPT in Italy because they already had a data breach. And then there's also a whole other privacy concern. So Italy basically doesn't allow ChatGPT to be used in the country because of two primary reasons right now. One, they did have a breach. Two, they don't know what information is actually being scraped from Italian citizens to build the model. So let's say now I poison the well of the LLM, right? And one thing that I've heard a lot about on a lot of cybersecurity blogs is that as the model is building itself, it's hard for us to understand where that data is being stored. So it's not like, like if anybody was a SQL developer, you can open up a database, you can read the tables, it all makes sense, right? You can see like, oh, here's this correct table, or here's where this entry got put in, let's pull that out. In this, it's like a foreign language. So we don't really know how to read the data set. So if I then inject the wrong stuff into that data set, and then people carte blanche pretty much trust everything it says, and it says, hey, oh, you're asking this question. If you just want more information, just click on this URL. You click on a URL. In short, that in most cases with most hackers, all they have to do is send you to a website and they can get complete control of your computer. So there's actually a competition every year called Own It and You Own It. And basically all I have to do is create a website to get access to a computer, and somebody can do it every year. So just by sending to a URL, not only do they have complete access to your computer, they can get access to your entire network and your data set. So those are a couple of things that I think we need to figure out. I generally take the position, if we look at the privacy angle, that Elon Musk said in 2016 is who owns the data set, right? We touched on it a little bit earlier and to make this probably everybody's funnest conversation, something you generally shouldn't talk about, politics, right? Is if you go to ChatGPT now and you say, please write me a poem about how great Donald Trump is. It will tell you Donald Trump is a very controversial figure. I cannot do that. But if you say, please write me a poem about how great Joe Biden is, it'll write you a poem about how wonderful Joe Biden is. So somebody, a human, is controlling this trust and safety layer. So who's determining what information we get access to it from? The problem is that nobody understands this, right? If we look at a lot of the big data breaches that have happened in vet med, with one very large titan in the industry that has not only happened in 2019, but it also just appears it happened again just a couple of months ago. They're controlling your data, and a lot of times you have no idea that they have complete access to your data set, and then they're giving that information away. So who's controlling what data that we get? Because most people who aren't tech savvy are going to assume that it's a machine that is completely unbiased, that's giving us just clean data, exactly what we want based on the information that's available, when really there's a middle layer that's basically controlling what questions you're allowed to ask and how those responses are then being built. So that's my soapbox.
I'm getting scared just from like listening, but I love how you know all the use cases and everything that's happening in the underworld there. Sorry, Heather.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say, I think, I mean, we all know that there's concerns, so it's great to have someone be pretty blunt about things and let us know what we need to be aware of. I didn't know if there was any other questions. Feel free for you guys to pop them in the chat. I also wanted to mention that we had started an AI for VetMed Slack group. So I will post the link to that in the chat as well. I've been posting some pertinent links that we've been discussing, but I'm going to make sure everything's up there. And then if there was some more use case experimentation that could happen, if anyone had any input, or if you guys wanted to continue with that, because I think that's kind of what we want to see is how can we use it? How can it be used?
Yeah, I'll share my screen in a couple of seconds and go over a couple of more use cases that we can do, and you can also guide me in terms of like what do you want me to ask OpenAI. But I think going back to Clint and the points that he made, so and I see Clint already is getting some questions there. But what's interesting is there are two important aspects. All these models have been trained by giving public access and letting people use them. I mean, that's one of the ways they got trained. And you know, the rule is that when you're not paying for something, so if something is free, it means you're the product. Yes. Same with Facebook, same with everyone else. So same here. Like if you're using the free OpenAI, most likely that data is being used because they need to use it for improving that. What I was showing you in the playground, that's a paid account. So what happens is that OpenAI is offering to companies and to individuals, you have the premium version where you're paying, and that is it falls under their licensing. So it's a different licensing in terms and agreements. And then that one, it's mentioned that at least with the latest update that they've done two weeks ago, they started mentioning that their data is not your data that you send over to them. So only the data that you send over. They only keep it for 1 or 2 days or 5, depending on, again, like local legal requirements, and then they remove it. So they're not using it in their models or anything else. So the data goes back to you. But yeah, it's important to know that they need to have access to the data in case you want to train it. But the great part is that you're controlling it. And I'll show you in a bit also what we've been doing at Digitail so far with OpenAI and GPT, but it requires so much effort to manually send all the data, to classify it. As in, it's not as simple as the news media wants to make it look that, oh, it just happens to take all your data. You need to manually send over everything that you wanted to know. And yeah, Italy was an interesting case of what happened there, but they have 15 or 10 more days to respond to the GDPR compliance. So GDPR, for everyone that's in the call, that's the most data privacy, like most, let's say, supreme data privacy laws in the world. They're saying that you're the one owning your data, and everything that you share or everything that you do, you need to consent to it. So it's not an auto opt in. It's it's not an opt out and you get it by default, but you need to opt in every time you need to share with someone or something. So another company. So that's where they failed in being proactive to send all that information to the Italian government, and that's where they were penalized by that, basically.
Yeah, well, that was on the data breach side because somebody got access to the back end of OpenAI, and so there's basically breach notification requirements, but then there's still the privacy side of, we know that OpenAI is scraping the internet, like they're sending it to scrape the internet. And if we have billions and billions of data points, we know that they're getting some sort of information, right? I think the greatest example is like Edward Snowden already told us that, the United States government has put in firewalls at every backbone in the US. So everything you search on the internet is going through the NSA first and is creating data sets there, right? So OpenAI is kind of, we don't know for sure. I think this is the biggest question, is that we don't know how they're going about scraping that info. So right now, if Facebook knows so much about you that generally can predict that a woman is pregnant before she knows she's pregnant and start sending her ads for prenatals and stuff like that, imagine now if we're able to scrape information from cell phones, especially Google, and Google is probably the worst privacy violator out there. And then with them building Bard, they're going to be scraping all your free Gmail accounts. How many of you hospitals are using free, animalhospital@gmail.com. They're going to be scraping your email communications because nobody's going to read that EULA. They're going to be scraping your Google Map requests, where you go, when you go, how long are you there. We already saw the United States government subpoena Google and Google Map requests with the CDC to make sure that we were all getting our vaccination requests, which is completely illegal, but they basically did it anyways. So now if you take a tool and you feed it these data sets, like, it's going to know everything about you. So like the biggest question I have is like, what if you're searching in, you're like, I've got this lump, right? And now we know that OpenAI has, is being paid by your health insurance company to then search, well, what kind of stuff has Clint been looking for? What kind of questions has Clint been asking? Oh, we see that Clint has been asking about this lump. He may have cancer. In the United States, we may either skyrocket your insurance premiums or now cut you off, right? And these are examples that we're seeing with big data already. So now if we put the power behind it, where somebody can easily just type an easy request, it becomes really scary. So how do we, like Snowden said, right? Like, how do we know that we're not, like, I think the problem is in the US because it's the wild, wild west and we don't have GDPR, that we're essentially SOL when it comes to any sort of privacy. But with that being said, I do think that there are some amazing things where we can create transparency, and you can say, yes, like, I want, as a hospital, I want to opt in, all of my soaps into this database so that we as a veterinary community can create better diagnoses together. I think those are really powerful, but I think but then we know what's happening, right? Like, it's a transparent conversation, and we know, and it's back and forth, because I'm submitting my data to not only help you, but hopefully help me in the future. And so it's like there's an exchange there.
And just to jump in, so then that'll probably be more on the client side, right? Because now we're saying, does the owner or the client or the patient own that data, and then it's to the clinic? And so they would have the
That's a
option
great
to then
question.
provide,
Yeah.
would I want to provide that information for,
Yeah, and in the
for
US, I
use
mean,
in-
like that's a big question, right? Like who technically owns that data? In most states, it's the veterinarian because they did the work. But in some states where there's, you know, if they have CCPA, and I think there's like 23 other states that adopted similar languages, you have some other rights there, as far as how's that data is managed. But that's a great question. Yeah, like who owns that data? In Europe, it's your data. Like if it's personal, that it doesn't matter who
Right.
collected it, it's yours. And so I think the only way we can help put the brakes on this to create some transparency is with like GDPR style regulations in the US.
Agree. And to touch on what you said about asking Google and then understanding basically if you ask about medical things and then the insurance could get that data, that's exactly what Google did with swine flu. If you remember, they did a map of showing where the swine flu was progressing, and they were using all the queries on Google to see where people were asking about certain symptoms for that.
Yep.
So there's a lot you can infer from data and questions.
And we also know that like the little Google cars that are driving all the maps are also Wi-Fi sniffing. So they were sniffing your Wi-Fi SSID to know exactly where you were located. Also got a massive lawsuit, but they never deleted the data, right? So those are the bigger questions. And I think if we, not to be all doom and gloom, I do think that there's some amazing things when we all come to collectively together and we can use these tools in like an open and transparent way, then I think it's amazing. I think like the sky is kind of the limit.
Agree. So as you know, data is one of the topics that at least us as a team is like, we've always been from day one really careful with data, and we're the big proponents that should use the data to improve the service, improve the outcomes, not to give it for free to other companies. So as we've started implementing GPT-4 within the practice management system, we tried to answer exactly the questions that we went over today, like how to use it, where it's most useful, and how do we do it in a way where it doesn't harm? Or again, there are loose ends that we don't want to, like path that we don't want to follow. So without going too much long, because I know we just have 5 minutes, I want to share this part. And for those interested, we can talk later on how to get access, how to play around. Actually, before I show you this, the last part that I would encourage everyone, like go on OpenAI and try really a pre-screening case with My Dog is Limping and see how cool it's able to ask all the questions until you get to a diagnosis. And you can tweak it by using this part here. So this is the prompts basically, where you set the scene for the conversation. You're basically telling GPT, like, do not give the diagnostic or ask questions one by one, or make sure that you're teaching it just in a sentence on how to do better with the pre-screening process. And if you want afterwards, we can finish this example here, but basically it does this on its own. And at the end, it summarizes the conversation if you need to. So I'm going here. This is an example within Digitail. So basically what we did is, first of it is contextual. So we added Tails. We call Tails the AI-powered GPT. It's within the medical record. So when you go on Daisy's profile, you'll have chat with Tails. And Tails now, depending on what you want to give access to it, it has access to by default for Daisy's information and the pet parent's information. So all the history, everything that you need to use to be able to start taking advantage of all those use cases for writing email templates, education, finding history insights, or medical support. So this on the right side, you basically start asking. You see that there's also recommendations. So there's another ML tool that helps you run the list of recommended next steps and what else to ask, but that's another story. So here basically you're asking questions of what are other vaccinations that Daisy needs, and it looks through all the history data and it starts answering with all the information. Same for trying to understand the trend with weight history, going through this. So all of this is taking in real time the data that's in the system. Similar for recent weight measurements, medical history, what's the ideal weight range. So again, you don't need to, in the other example that we've done, we had to manually give it all the information. In this case, it's reading it from health record. And then you can go in details and doing the example with the calorie calculations that we've done on the playground. And then if you want, you can just reframe this and saying, rephrase it in a way that I can send it to the client via text or via email. And then as we grow with this, you can just send it directly and you're just verifying that this happens. We go to other ones, potential side effects of medication prescribed. So again, it goes into all the details, and then you can decide to send this to the client. Last communication. Oh, this was an interesting one. So in Digitail, you have all the client communication and centralized in one place. And basically just a summary, okay, when were the last conversations? It tells you when they took place. Then I'm asking sentiment analysis, like how did Amanda feel? Like, was she happy? Was she upset? What was the conversation about? So again, going back to the summary capabilities that GPT has. So in one of the conversation here, unhappy, speed of responses. So it knew about the dissatisfaction. So then, okay, we said, let's make it more difficult because that's we're currently probing it to make it life difficult for GPT. So then we added another one where we said that she's actually happy. So we logged this in the past. So now we have two. And then after we asked again, how did she feel? GPT started saying that Amanda has mixed feelings about the practice and explaining what were the conversations, when, and understanding how did it end up to like them feeling like this. So it basically goes through all the queries. Also, it understands what's in the message. So in one of the messages, again, trying to make GPT's life complicated, we added this one with Amanda prefers text communication because, of course, ideally everything is organized and put in place and all the client's profile is well written down and everything, but sometimes information gets left in a summary or in a note or somewhere else. So it was able to understand directly from the notes that what's the preferred communication method. Again, spotting information about a client, about patients, about all the patients in the household, so it knows how to refer to this, creating just reports and emoji format, so you can really extend it to a lot of different capabilities. This is by default what happens, and with a couple of suggestions. Do you want me to try anything on it? What's a question that you'd like me to try to break it with? I know Douglas always has tough questions to ask.
It says Daisy's pet parent needs to pay her bills.
It's true.
It does, 3,000 of them. So this is where you can say, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, while you're testing that out, there's a couple other questions. Ryan had asked me, are you more concerned about AI cracking encryptions or is quantum encryptions encrypted first? I think the short answer is that with these language models, not so much concerned about it. And Sebastian, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially all it's trying to do is based on like 3 words, it's trying to predict the next 3 words. So right now, AI isn't really, it's not involved in the business of cracking. And cracking generally comes down to computer power, which already halves every year. So if we put encryption in place today, that's a billion-year encryption. Next year, it'll be a 500 million encryption unless we update it. And that's just based on computing power because there's already tools out there. So technically, we could ask these language models to build us a decryption tool. But the problem is nobody in VetMed encrypts anything.
Good point.
Thanks, Clint.
There was another question. What are the pros and cons of building MLM versus building one off the shelf?
Unless we're
Or
Google or one of the big fours or anything like that, I wouldn't even try to go down this path because already the competitors are way too advanced. Like if you go back to the timeline that I showed you initially with the data points that they have, basically you're trying to compete with someone that already has access to 1.7 trillion data points. So unless you have a competitive advantage like that, to be able to have your model to be better than the existing ones off the shelf, I wouldn't go down this path. However, you could use existing models to build a better use case for specific niches. So if with VetMed, it's one example, the off-the-shelf one will work for some cases, but you need to start narrowing down to be able to train it to answer the way we want it to answer in the use cases that we're targeting. So for pre-screening, for medical support, for in other words, okay, by default they're trained on, let's say, the general books on InVetMed, but if you wanted to start favoring some books over other ones, that's also part of the training that needs to go in it to be able to provide better results.
So Ken asked, can you ask it, what is the best diet for a diabetic obese cat with pancreatitis?
Ooh.
And then right above that was, I think, a question for me, or more of a statement. Is there such thing as a sovereign individual? Not anymore. No. And Alex said you can use data sets generated by GPT-4 to fine-tune open source models to provide better answers.
Okay, we'll try this one directly in Digitail, but it's not a specific question to Daisy, but let's see what it says.
And so while it's generating this is probably a question for you, Seb. How did the system know that Daisy was making good progress?
I just put in there, it was pulling from a previous communication note that was in Daisy's history.
Oh, you answered, yeah.
So it analyzed basically the content of the conversation, but the same way it can analyze the content of the previous diagnostics, previous information that you've added in the SOAP. So it has access to that, so that it can understand and infer from all the conversation. Again, like summary power, it's really good for doing summaries. So if you have a huge like history with all the records, all the information, it can parse all of this in a couple of seconds and pull the information that you need. So you can also teach it how to retrieve the information. Sorry,
I like this question, Ty. Can you see if we can get information of someone's pets that's not our client, essentially, or is the security measure, are the security measures set up? So can you ask it a question about another hospital's? Well, like, can you get information on another hospital?
Or another client within that hospital?
That's a great one. So we had to work a lot just to give, so for AI to not only have access to what's on this page, but to understand that Amanda, so we manually have to give access to the other pets of Amanda. Like for it to go out of this safe rails and start going to other clinics' data, it's no.
But and what you're saying there is because you would essentially have to tell it to be able to do that. Like it just won't do it on its own.
Exactly. That's why that was basically the remark that I tried to make earlier. We'd love it to have the capability to know how to do all of this, because it would make life for developers a lot easier. But in reality, you need to manually instruct it a lot of things to be able to do.
And then what's the process, Sebastian? I think it's important. If you wanted to point towards specific resources, how would you, how do you go about doing that in like a situation like this? I wanted to pull information from specific nutritional, resources that I trust, and I wanted to provide information to my clients from those ones that I like.
Correct. So that's something that we're able to do in the system by prompting it. So we have an internal prompt, basically a way of teaching in the behind the scenes, teaching GPT what to do and how to do. And you can upload the books that you wanted to search. You can upload, like, again, your Plums, Papage, all of the books that you want to get information from. If you want to try it in the public one, you won't be able to upload the book or do things like this, but you're able to give instructions if it has access to. So in other words, you could say things like, don't give me answers from something, or avoid. So all of this exactly like you would talk with a person, and you train and educate them. So you can do this here, but again, with the mention that, thanks for asking that, with the mention that you won't have access to uploading books, given direct access to website, because it's still locked. And the only way you could give it access to certain websites is by installing some plugins and doing some things.
How far off do you think those plugins are? So let's say I want to include my Plums, I don't know, subscription, online subscription. How long? When is that in the roadmap, do you think?
For the OpenAI or for ours?
Yeah.
For ours, you can already do it. For OpenAI, I don't know. I would love to know that.
There was a question. Do you think do you think this system is viable for care systems such as value-based care, where patient trends communications is key to reduce the number of visits to ER/TP, and then i.e. preventative care?
That's a good question. So basically, trying to reduce again number of visits and improving. Depends. Like if for this one, you would need to start understanding what like those visits, if they can be avoided or not, if they can be done asynchronous or not. I think for now, after again having this in production and actually being used by clinics, what we've learned is that it can definitely help with conversations. It can help, like again, in the conversations with the pet parent, but you need to understand that it's not going to have 100% accuracy for all cases. So you still need some human interaction there to review, to make sure that everything is all right. So in other words, it's similar to how you would have now a super trained person in the team running that, but you would do it at scale. So AKA, if you could do async something now, you would be able to do it also with GPT, but at scale. So one person would have, let's say, a maximum of 1,000 patients that they would cover. With this one, you could do it for 10,000, but you still need someone to review all those conversations. I'm trying to also monitor what's in the. Wait, I had a question for if the patient has an active
VCPR.
Yeah.
Yes, if this patient has an active VCPR. Interesting. You probably would have to define. Yeah. But you could likely define that in the system, make that one of your guidelines.
So this exactly, it's a really good example. Like in this case, it understands what VCPR is. Apparently, it understands that you need to look at like what information to look at. But we need in the backend to specify that, okay, you'll need to verify this when someone asks about this question.
Yeah.
All right. I think if there is not anything else, we're a little bit over. So I think I'm going to cut it off so we can give people back their evening. But I think the whole idea of this AI discussion was kind of just to start somewhere and help things be a little bit more accessible and get some subject matter out. So I think we would like to do this again if there's enough interest. So let me know. This is recorded, so I'll be sending over something afterwards. Join the Slack channel. Again, we're going to be getting up a lot of the links that were discussed today. If there's any additional questions, we can use that to dive into things a little bit more in depth. And just thank you so much to Dr. Barr and to Clint and to Sebastian for taking the time to really kind of give us all of this information. It's been very informative. So thank you guys very much. And thank you to all of you for coming and attending and for giving us your great questions as well. All right.
Thanks, guys.
That's
Awesome
it.
to chat.
I'm still playing the use case. I've seen another question.
Oh, okay. You're still doing it.
Exciting stuff. I know. This is exciting.
All right. Well, whoever wants to stay and watch Sebastian and Barr play. Yeah. Go ahead.
This is exciting. Like, there's so much we didn't get into. Like, we kind of.
There's so much. Yeah, there really is a lot.
There's a lot there, and I think it's super exciting to just to think about the possibilities where it can go. For sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and see you on Slack and all the other channels that we normally talk on.
Thank you.
What are you checking out?
Okay, seems it has access to some Hawaii regulations.
Wondering if it was something along the lines of like, this pet lives in Connecticut, will be traveling this year to blank and blank locations, like what, obviously there may be individuals who are like somewhere in Europe, or it may be going somewhere different. Like, is it able to pick up that like that area has Lyme, or that area, technically the CDC heat maps show like that's a heavy lepto area and it's endemic there. And like, I don't know that. I mean, it's location specific. Like, can it pick those things up? And, can I offer that? And I look like the Wizard of Oz, by plugging something like that in. I mean, like, well, based on where you're going and based on what you're telling me, this is something that we need to be concerned about, or this tick is now endemic there and NextGuard doesn't cover that tick. So maybe we need to make that transition over to Simparica Trio. That has a broader coverage, those kind of like components, or that area right now has a high area of heartworm resistance and you're on an ivermectin based product. Like, is it able to pick up some of those things? And because we have a lot of movement, right? I'm in an area that's got a ton of military, and so they're in and out and their movement and they're doing those transitions. So you would have a lot of those data points that can collect, and then like where they're coming from here and going there. Okay, as they go to that next hospital, now they're pulling that data with them. And again, it allows me to like prep for that area. It's like I don't know what's happening in Mississippi necessarily. That's not where I work, but there's data points there that say, hey, we're seeing a lot of this. Good, you need to prep them for this, or you need to transition them from this preventative product to that preventative product. Or you need to offer this vaccine because they're not lepto covered in that area. It's endemic and they need, just as examples. So again, you asked how I could break it. That's me trying to break it.
Where would you normally?
I think we did try that, Douglas.
Yeah.
We were discussing that earlier. How can you have it do risk profiles, and how can you bring in like location-based risk profiles amongst others to help you? Yeah, did exactly what you're saying. For sure.
Where would you normally find this information? Like what's important to take care of if you go to Mississippi?
It'd be probably a combination of a bunch of sources, but
they have
some of that the CDC tracks, like lepto is because it's human as well.
No,
like the CDC would track some of that. I know that CDC has heat maps on some of that.
They do. There's CDC, and there's another one. What is it called? It's not a parasite. There's a map that has based on.
Oh no, the parasite. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Douglas? It's parasites.
Yes.
It's an acronym. It's like 4.
Yep. Companion Animal Parasite Council.
Yeah.
That one.
William, just put it in there.
Like if you can, somehow you can get it to query this and look at,
But the mental model is that if it's a text or a map, it could be read, and then it can be read, then it can be fed to the system, and if it's fed to the system, then it can be part of the response.
But right now you're not going to be able to do real time. Right now, obviously, ChatGPT doesn't have real time data. But in the future now, so each of these sites are going to have plugins, and now you're going to have to pay them to query their information. How's that going to work?
Oh, there are a lot of options for that. So yes, you can have plugin and connect directly to OpenAI, or in this case, for example, we can insert data into it.
But let's say you want to pull data from this CAPC site. How are you going to pull that? Because they're going to have access to right? Like how you
correct. So we would manually, similar to how you would do it with a PDF or with a book, but we would go build a connection to this website.
So you would scrape the data
actually. Yes. Yeah.
And are we that's able to use information like that that's scraped without, they don't have any, I don't know, proprietary?
It depends on, that's
like
why it depends on each website. And so for example, this one, I'm assuming this information is public because it's of public interest.
I guess if it's a website, then they are assuming it's public. It's not behind a paywall. So then it's okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because like I'm even looking at it that they have that new tick or whatnot, that Asian tick that's coming down the eastern seaboard in the United States, and it's progressing in areas. Like, obviously tracking that. I know that Simparica Trio will cover it. I honestly don't know if NextGuard will cover it off the top of my head, but just even something like that, like you could predict those things, right? And it's like, hey, there's something new in the area. It's not only would it alert those things, but would it even allow for like an alert in your system to basically be saying, hey, like, we're getting data points that are indicating that this is migrated there, and like it alerts you to say, hey, this is a new thing and you need to be exploring it. And how does that populate?
That'd be awesome. You combine data from this kind of stuff. You combine data from lab data, combine data from just diagnosis on other practices that are nearby, whatever. Put all together.
But for that, you would need to agree to share it, not only for using it internally, but also anonymously sharing it with.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so you pull it from this.
That's where we need to continue the education in the space. Yeah.
And then you have to start making, that's something that you would internally look at disease maps, see what products I'm using, see if my products cover those specific. I mean, you would have to write some certain rules, but that would be definitely possible. I think that's cool.
And with the pre-screening, have you tried it already? You want to try to break it?
For triaging. It does.
Yeah,
pre-screening.
We can also hope for a successful
A for
outcome and not
A
break
for
it, but-
A, or even if they're like A to get your pre-screen, and then maybe, or even is to like yeah, triage it into a bucket of urgency, and then have that bucket, you know, so you can schedule accordingly. It's emergent, urgent, non-urgent, and then have that kind of, you can feed into, provides you a report, and it provides the client with certain specific scheduling based on the urgency.
Yeah, some sort of like auto attendant triage that could theoretically direct them based on need and most likely
Right.
causes.
And then escalate accordingly, you know, like, oh, okay, this is, we gotta send you to a, yeah.
Well, and then in theory, I mean,
That
you could even
nurse
align,
line.
you could even align that with some sort of basically like a scheduling that would be aligned with that, right? Not only on urgency, but your schedule would allow to maybe transition people in and out of those timeframes, especially when you're talking about like, hey, there's some sort of ETA, or like, we're going to give you an appointment on this day, but we don't have the, like, between these hours and this hours, and then based on need, it would depend on what people would offer and potentially change moving forward.
Yep. Yeah. Do you have any case example, Douglas, that you think that you would that it would not be able to, that would crack it?
I'd have to think about it.
I know. No, same. I was thinking the same, and I was like, what would be
It's a good stumper. We
Before
tried to
the-
we
yeah.
tried to mess it up with the like urinary blockage before.
yeah, pick that up. I mean, it was at least in the differential lift, you know, even if it doesn't say what, but it will put that in there.
Yeah.
Sort of cross check certain things that maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but the good part is that, again, you can train it to do degree, like the depth you want, or at least in this part, what's interesting is that being part of the system, all the answers that you get, basically it's going to ask as until you get all the questions answered, and then put it together and then connect them to the history in the SOAP.
Yeah.
Danielle just asked, is anyone here already using AI in practice?
Mm-hmm.
And William says he's trying more testing and evaluating than using.
Yeah, that's something.
Because again, it's still exploratory.
Yeah. And as it learns, and as you get more specific medical and vet cases, that'll obviously be more and more useful.
It's interesting that also it knows for like confirmatory testing. If you ask it on whether confirmatory testing for Addison's or for anything else, it does the textbook answer for things.
Yeah.
So you could connect it to what's in the SOAP and verifying that it matches that, and if not alerts, that's also another use case.
That is good. Then I think you could, along the lines with like disease map, I think it'd be what's new research coming out, what are new treatment protocols coming out that are maybe not textbook, but are better. If you can start scanning in new things, you have a client with whatever, you know, type of cancer. Hey, by the way, there's this new treatment protocol, there's this new clinical trial going on, pulling in information that you wouldn't even, you know, that most vets don't have time to be up on most of the time.
How does it handle like conflicting information? You know, for example, that like the United States versus Europe, they may do things differently, like monitoring of Cushing's, you know, like there's varied recommendations. You know, a lot of like the European approaches to it tend to be based on clinical symptoms and less on, you know, certain types of testing and different ACTH stims and things. And then the US, they kind of take a different approach. So like, depending on which specialty they use, how would it handle something like that based on recommendations that it's giving? Would it be regionally specific, or would it, again, it's like, it's almost opinion based at that point, right?
True.
You get down to a certain point. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if there's not a clear
Yeah.
consensus statement, then what is it going to pull?
I think there
Ask
are
it.
two aspects to it. Yeah, and so there are two. What should I ask?
What's
I mean, I think it's because if I remember correctly, I think it is that Cushing's is there's two almost different testing methodologies, and it's European versus US based.
That's good. So like, what should be my testing protocol for Cushing's? For Cushing's disease, yeah. And see if it'll give you one generic one, or if it's going to give you.
Probably Hasma
And can you
knows
ask
more
it?
on this one, but yeah.
Can you ask
Can
it afterwards? What was your source, and will it be accurate?
We can. I'm not sure if
Because
we
I've seen
instructed it
other
to.
ones, and I don't know if they fixed it, but I've seen other ones where you ask it its sources, and it'll just give you like bullshit sources. Like you hit the link and it just goes to nowhere. So
Yeah, let's try. Let's try.
you know, sometimes it does
Um,
hallucinate the resources. So you gotta.
Let's let it finish the answer. But basically here there are two aspects. One is again the long-term memory. So that's what was the LLM trained on, and most likely English-based content online would be more prevalent with US rather than Europe. So most likely snap quick answer would be more US like, but let's see what it has. And then the good part is that with the training, so let's say with the working memory, you can train it to have a bias towards one thing or another one, which is the preference of the person using it.
Yeah, focus on.
Okay, what is it?
And try ask it after.
Yeah.
What are you ask it if there are any differences between US and Europe protocol?
Let's try this
And then,
first.
yeah. Okay.
I know it has some textbook answers for like I can't disclose or like
Knowledge and experience. See?
various textbooks.
General veterinary knowledge and experience, which includes establishing diagnostic procedures.
This is another interesting privacy point because like ChatGPT will pull copyrighted material. Like if you ask it to give you the first few sentences of a specific book, like it'll give you that information, but that information is technically copywritten. So technically that was illegal, but yet they're scraping that data.
Right.
And giving it to you.
Right.
Interesting. And yeah.
So like I wonder like with these books here, like where did it get that? Where did it get that info? Again, just
but
like
it must have been somewhat publicly available, right? Clint, it has to be publicly available somewhere.
Well, I don't know. It depends because like some
how did it
people store like people will store PDFs on internet facing FTP sites. It's like have you ever used Google to like search for like people's servers and find documents that you're looking for? Because a lot of people will just have stuff that's internet facing, and so like you can search people's like file servers, and so it could have been publicly available. They saw it. So technically, it's like public, but the person didn't know that it was actually public.
Interesting. Okay.
I think there are two aspects there. Like one is you do pay for your books and you should be able to use it for your own statement. As in, I pay for a book, I uploaded it, and I wanted to query that book. It's within the rights and copyright infringement, right? I paid for it, I'm using it for my own information. I'm not reading it directly, it's someone else reading it. But it doesn't matter if it's an AI reading it or another person.
Yeah, but now you get it like,
debate.
but like look at like the Napster case. Like everybody remember or am I the only old one here who used Napster? You know, anybody remember that?
I used LimeWire, but yeah.
Yeah,
LimeWire and
LimeWire. Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
And like what was but the problem is that okay, cool, I purchased the record, but now I've shared it with everybody, right? So it's like I purchased the book, sure, it's publicly facing, but once it goes into an AI model, it's now available to everybody. So the person who did all the work is now not getting compensated for all of the work that they put into that book.
Correct. So now basically what you're saying is that you can't put it in the long-term memory because that's something that everyone will use, but I could use it in the short-term memory, like my instance of GPT and what I'm using.
Yeah.
Right.
But only for yourself.
But it's also not
Digitail. Like technically Digitail could get in trouble legally if you uploaded a bunch.
If we would, exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And then gave access to all your clients.
Even though it's not copying it directly though, but I guess you're using it as an image source. Because of what if you train it based on your information you read? Because it's not copying the information exactly, it's rewriting it, right? There are some certain most content that it writes is generally not considered copyrighted, right?
Correct. This was an interesting
Because it's not
debate that-
copying
but
verbatim
apparently-
from sources. It's recreating new original text.
Correct. And this is where what's interesting is that this entire debate has already happened for Google and copyright infringing with all the websites, because Google is actually leveraging content on websites to show it around. So they're making money based on the content that already exists in other websites.
Yeah.
And apparently
That's
the
an
way
exact
that
copy,
was
though.
solved, it's an exact copy, correct. So the way that was solved was that Google is paying heavily everyone that's doing all the AdSense. So they're paying back money. And there was but I don't remember, there was a lawsuit that was settled, and that's now the book for how this
The
copywriting
problem was
works.
is that they weren't initially thinking in the it's going to be an agreement between us and everybody that's doing it. It was, okay, we're going to do something illegal, and then once we get caught, we'll then make up for it later. Like, that's the problem
Yeah,
with this, right? Like, nobody, like, hell, you guys were even like kind enough to have me on here who's like who's very like devil's advocate about this, to think about this stuff, right? But not everybody's Digitail to think about like, how do we do this the right way? Everybody else is like scraping the data and then we'll deal with it later, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
for
okay, but
saying
is it technically known that it's illegal though?
With that,
Do we
that.
know
No,
that it's
I
actually
don't think there's
illegal
enough
to say that it is?
education. Yeah, no.
Because I'm like, if someone gives you, let's say you read all these textbooks and you write a response to someone else based on all your knowledge from that, it's definitely not, right? You're
Right,
rewriting
yeah.
the information you learned. It's technically almost like that, where the AI is taking that information, rewriting it for you. So, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. It is. I mean, it does get kind of gray zone-ish, but
There's an
Yeah,
interesting
but I think in
lawsuit right
Google's
now.
case is like, but they're taking other people's content to build their own, like directly taking content from websites to then build the model, right? So that's where the legal issue goes. Not necessarily what they're presenting, but the fact that they basically, what's that? Like,
Yeah.
what's that called? Where you
what's
use some,
percent?
yeah.
There's an
Okay.
ongoing lawsuit with with photos. One of the language models was trained on open data, well, on the
Mhm.
web, and part of that web was photos from I don't remember.
Getty
It was
Getty
not
images.
Getty.
Oh,
Getty,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what
and you can
happened
see
in
their-
one of the
Yeah.
and one of the results of the photos that it produced was a
Yeah.
watermark
More than
from Getty.
one. More than one. There's a lot
Funny.
of them. Yeah.
And that's how they got caught. So they're
Yes.
basically just like, well, we're gonna dump this in there, and they're like, shit, it's putting us on
Yeah, yeah.
blast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The only way you can actually crack this if you have transparency and someone opens how the model is trained, and
Yeah,
then you'll
exactly.
see exactly that it's trained on this data. If not, it's
Right.
super hard. Like, you could argue that the watermark from Getty came up as a randomization of
Yeah.
pixels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Okay.
guys for having me. I'm excited about what you guys are doing. I think it's cool.
Thanks so much. Okay, we're gonna call it.
sure.
It's 7
You're
o'clock.
coming.
We went half an hour over. But I just wanted
Cool.
to say one thing. The comment, the most recent comment by William, it looks like, really kind of summarized it quite well. He said, sure, but it can do research and review in a fraction of the time it takes you or me, but it's not a replacement for our brains. It's an enhancement. It's like the internet or a scalpel. It helps, it doesn't replace. I thought that
Sure.
was very succinct. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully we can do this again, and stay tuned for the recording of the webinar, but we're going to call it.
Bye.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Fun. See you guys.